Good afternoon, Keith Tebow, FRC Media. Thank you for joining us today. We're getting set for the November 3rd election, and we're going to be speaking to a number of candidates between now and Election Day to hopefully get you better prepared for when you go to the ballot box. Our guest today is someone we actually spoke to over the summer. It is the Republican nominee for the Massachusetts 4th Congressional District. We're pleased to be joined by Julie Hall. Julie, thank you for joining us again. How are you?
And thanks for having me. I'm doing great.
First of all, congratulations on the primary win. Let me ask you, what was that like? You did have a primary challenger on the Republican primary. What did you learn from that, and how is that going to help you moving forward?
Sure. I think what's good is that you learn, in particular, what the folks in your district are really concerned about. So I did have a great opportunity to go around to the different cities and towns and find out, some of the issues. For instance, down near the Somerset and the Swansea area, they're all having concerns about Brayton Point. Sorry, I just want to Brayton Point, which is the old nuclear plant, and they're wondering what's going to happen with that, those kinds of things. So just different things going on in different neighborhoods that I've learned about. There's some issues going up there in Hopedale, and a lot of these things are issues that like I said, often have to go through the state rep first, but as you hear about them, you want to know what's concerning these folks, and I want to focus more in on the district. A lot of people ask me questions about Washington, D.C., and I hear from my constituents, and they tell me they're not as interested in Washington, D.C. as they are interested in what's going on in the district. So that's what I've learned the most about. And I think that's the most important thing that I've learned is, what's going on with them, what people are like.
Well, let me step into now the next part of the race is now, you're going to be up against the Democrat Jake Auchincloss
Right.
in the November election. Has your organization changed at all? Are you getting some more interest from, the Republican Party in general now that the primary is over, and then you're the standard bearer, if you will, within the district?
Sure. I think it's natural. It is natural. I've run before. It's very natural for someone, for folks to wait. In particular, endorsements, they want to wait till after the primary. They want to make sure, and they want to make sure that their endorsement isn't, wasted. And that's not a reflection on anybody in particular, but they want to make sure that they have a good endorsement, somebody they can endorse after that. So a lot of the people sort of lay back a little bit. And yes, the answer is yes. I've had a number of people ask to come join the, our team, and that's been excellent. It's timely because we need, people out there. And I think the other thing about it is that when you have more people that want to help you out, kind of boost you up emotionally for the next couple of months that you're going to have to go through. So it's all good.
So, for those who didn't watch our first interview with you back in the summer, tell people about yourself and why you should be the next Congresswoman from the 4th Massachusetts District.
Yep. So, and you heard my name is Julie Hall, but I'm a retired Air Force colonel. And what's significant about that is I started off in 1978, and I started off as an airman in a place that is predominantly male-dominated environment, which was very difficult as I made my way up through the ranks. I never expected that I'd stay as long as I did. I went in because I wanted to serve my country, and I also wanted to finish my education. I grew up in a family where there were 6 other siblings and myself in Walpole, Massachusetts, and we struggled. I think like most families in Congressional District 4, we struggle all the time to try to put food on the table, to try to, pay our taxes, take care of our children, make sure we have money for our kids to go to college if they want to go to college. So all of those reasons came to me when I got back here out of the military. And again, I started off at the very bottom as an airman, and I made my way all the way through to colonel. I was also a hospital administrator. So that's going to be very helpful as we move through and we have discussions about healthcare, because the money that I used to pay for the healthcare, to do what I needed to do, was 100% taxpayer money. which is sort of what we're thinking about going to, or people are trying to hint us moving to. And I'm here to tell you, it's not the way to go. We still are, even with having taxpayer money, you have to have an income. The way we get things in this country and are able to provide for other people is by building wealth. You've got to build wealth. They even changed the names of hospitals or names of organizations. I think in my time, they used to be called nonprofits. And they actually changed the name from nonprofit to not-for-profit because it was a misnomer. You have to make a profit, regardless of what kind of an organization you are, you're not going to be able to invest back into that organization. So, so what does this mean for the people of District 4? I grew up here. I'm one of you. I don't have to pretend to be one of you. I am one of you. And this is our seat. And we've waited for so long to have somebody represent us in this seat. There has not been a conservative voice for quite some time. There hasn't been a Republican for quite some time. But again, more importantly, there hasn't been a voice that represents what we go through as a working class. I don't like to use the word middle class because there's many different definitions of that. But working class people who get affected the most when taxes are raised. It puts us back a burden again. We're out there working hard, and then your taxes get raised, your health care, co-payments go up. Those are the things that for the working class people is very, very difficult on us. So I understand that. I feel that pain. I felt that pain in my large family that I grew up in. And I want to make sure that there's a voice for people like myself and the rest of us in District 4.
I want to get to a number of these issues as we go along, but I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the current hot button topic issue that has happened, in the past few days, the passing, of course, of Supreme Court Justice Ginsburg and what that means for filling that seat. Are you in favor of the Senate moving forward now to fill that seat as soon as possible?
Thank you for bringing that up. That is a Senate responsibility, and I'm running for the House of Representatives. But I think the Constitution is very clear. If you look back at the Constitution, you're supposed to fill that position as soon as you can. When something like this happens, you're supposed to go out and fill it as soon as you can. So I think that's what they need to do. But given that, as you said, the Senate can decide to delay it. They could vote. They could not vote. So if the Senate really has the power, I don't think it goes back to do you or don't do you or do you not do it. You do it. But then you allow the Senate and the Constitution to go through the process that it has. And again, if they want to vote on the nominee, they can do. If they want to delay it, they can do it. So it's completely in their hands as far as I can see from the Constitution. And we just have to follow that process and see where it takes us. I do want to say, though, she was a great woman. And I am sad. I mean, I was around when she was appointed, and she did some really, really great things for people. And I do want to, at least mention that it is a sad thing for anybody that knew her and was around when she, went through the Supreme Court to see a woman at any kinds of these venues where they're all male-oriented environments was a very enlightening for the rest of us as we came up through our roles and careers.
All right, I want to start talking about some of the other issues that may be coming up in the campaign. You mentioned your career as a colonel in the Air Force. What experience from there will you be able to take in terms of either legislating, in terms of supporting the military and supporting foreign policy? I guess, how can you bring that experience into what you hope to do in Congress?
Sure. When we go through the military and we're brought up, and especially during our enlisted ranks, but more importantly, as I became an officer, we are continually trained in leadership. We're trained in doing our job, which at that time I was a hospital administrator. The military is very good about making sure you are balanced in terms of your leadership skills, in terms of your education. The government ended up paying for 2 master's degrees for me and an internship at Johns Hopkins, which I'm very grateful for. So all of those experience that the government has given me, or I mean, I know people say, oh, you earned them, but I look at it as the fact that the government has done, and I'm very grateful for that, which is one of the reasons, another reasons why I really want to give back, because, I feel that I'm grateful, and I do want to give back, and I feel that I've done all these things, and I think there's a purpose for them. But the leadership part is very important. As a leader, you learn to bring peace where there's chaos. You learn to bring, methodical thinking to the table. I was talking to someone today about I would never be able to go into my senior officer with one alternative. I always had to have a plan B. Always. You don't rely on one thing. You do a lot of research as much as you possibly can, because you want to make sure that the people, and oftentimes my generals were going up and testifying in front of Congress. So I had actually given information to people that was used for testimony at Congress when I was stationed in DC. But foreign affairs, that is another part of what they train us in. We have to go to these leadership training classes, and at every milestone of our promotion, we are also have to meet a milestone in foreign affairs. So I have a lot of experience. I have a lot of personal experience. I have a lot of educational experience. I have a lot of experience in healthcare. I have a lot of experience with foreign affairs. I've also, I think the most important thing is not just experience, but what I call experiences. You could learn out of a book as much as you want, but until you actually are able to go out and test those theories, those things that your formal education is telling you, doesn't really ring true until you have those experiences of going out and meeting other people, which is why I have such a great respect for the United States of America. I met people that didn't have the rights that we have. None. I mean, they weren't allowed to go to school. There were some women not even allowed to get educated. And that bothered me quite a bit. And I really, again, came back to the United States and said, my goodness, we have a lot of freedoms and rights here, and we complain about them all the time. And, I said, I'm never going to complain about them again. So that's another reason I wanted to run is I love the United States. You can see I love the American flag. I am a veteran, and I'm very much supportive of veterans. The governor, Charlie Baker, did appoint me to the Governor's Advisory Council for Veteran Services. And I also won the Outstanding Women Veteran of the Year Award for the state of Massachusetts because of my advocacy for veterans. And I didn't really do anything formally. I just got out there. And as a colonel, I think it was the colonel in me. I'm the colonel. I'm supposed to take care of the people that are out here. And as far as I'm concerned, the veterans, we're all military. We're always going to be military. And I'm always going to look at them as somebody that I want to lead, I want to take care of.
Let me just ask you, we talked last time about COVID-19 and the pandemic. Let me just ask you again briefly, how do you think the president has handled the pandemic? And I guess something that's sort of been coming up is in terms of the next phase of any financial support for either businesses or
Sure.
local and state governments. What are your thoughts on how much more the federal government should do?
Well, let me talk about COVID. And I got asked this question the other day, would I trust, and what they said was, originally, well, there's a lot of controversy between the scientists of what's right, what's wrong, what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing. And again, I alluded to this. I would never be able to go into my boss without doing a lot of research and giving both sides of the coin and being able to give as much information I can. But as the leader, the person in charge, it's up to that individual to take all this information and make the decision. That's just part of being a leader. And, people say, oh, you're supporting. I'm not. Listen, that's my thought process. The leader is the person that's supposed to assimilate all the information. And sometimes, as I know from myself being a leader, sometimes the leader has a little bit extra information that we don't always have. I used to have a top secret clearance, and I used to get extra information that wasn't privy to everybody else. So you have to rely on that leader to make those decisions, no matter whether you think they're the right decisions or the wrong decisions. That's just the way the process works. So I do believe that the first thing we need to do, we need to shore up this economy. We need to get people back to work. I have talked to so many business owners and how devastated they are. The restaurant business. but they want to go back to work. So we need to get them back to work as best we can. If we have to wear a mask, then we have to wear a mask, but people have got to go back for a couple of reasons. It's good because you want to feel like a valuable member of society. And it's healthy. I think for people's mental health, they want to be doing something. So the government does have a responsibility in this instance, because COVID was an unusual situation. A lot of people say to me, well, you talk about the free market and competition. Don't you think that's what, weeds the business out or makes one stronger? Absolutely. But this is a different situation. Think about the airlines. They were told they could not fly people. Again, it's not by their own decision that this happened, and not by their own decision did the businesses. So I believe it is the responsibility of the government in this particular case to come in and help out and allow certain businesses, and I say certain businesses because I like what they're doing now. I do like that they're targeting certain businesses. Not all businesses are the same. They have different needs. I know it's harder to administer when you have to find out which each business has a special need instead of just saying everybody gets the same amount of money. But that's the responsibility, again, of someone who's in a leadership position, is to take that extra time and find out what's the best thing for this particular business. What's the best thing for this particular business? We've got to get them moving on. So I think they need to vote as soon as to try to get this money out as soon as they possibly can. Watch, see what happens. Government then needs to step back and allow these businesses to prosper, because that's the way. Too much government control and regulation is only the thing that gets them down. The other thing, raising taxes, is absolutely not the way to go. We don't need the taxes raised right now. You're going to put these people, hurt them again. That's just, ridiculous. So let the government at least get us going in the right direction and see if we can get these businesses to prosper. I think we're going to have to look at it again for not too far down the line, maybe another 6 months. We're just going to have to watch and hope that this is what stimulates the economy. But we've got to get back to work. We've got to stimulate the economy. We've got to get back to some kind of normalization.
Well, let me ask you then, does that also include, I know it's not business per se, but state and local governments have been hit hard by lack of revenue coming in. So should there be some aid for them as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, no fault of their own. This is an unusual situation that I think people have tried to do they have really tried to do the best that they could. And again, I see these leaders out there. I see Charlie Baker. People say, oh, he's done a great job. And there's people that said he's done a horrible job. I certainly would not like to be in his shoes. Okay. I don't want to be the person that looks at my state and sees people dying in my state. That's not a pleasant feeling at all. And, I've had to send people off to war, and it's not a good feeling for that to happen. So I like to keep that in mind when I temper how I feel about the decisions that people make when they're in a leadership position. But the answer is yes. I absolutely think that the states and the local governments, and hopefully it filters down to the local government in an appropriate way. But they've got to be able to clearly define, in my mind, where those needs are. What's the most important needs that they have? And again, the needs for Swansea may be different from the needs for Newton. And so I really hope that the leaders, once this money gets to the state, takes a look at that. There's equitable and then there's fair. And I think you've got to look at what is fair for each one of these cities and towns, because they have different needs. So if I was to say anything to the leaders, take the time to allow these cities and towns to express to them and clearly define where they believe that their needs are the greatest, and try to fulfill those needs for them.
Yeah. You also mentioned that you have, of course, a background as a hospital administrator. How do you hope to take that experiences in terms of, improving our healthcare situation across the country?
Sure. I really would like to see it move back to the businesses and allow the businesses, because I do believe that that was a great incentive for people. I remember when my parents went to work, they worked sometimes just for the health care because it was that much of a benefit to the family to do that. But I do want to see, right now, I believe we have a hybrid system. We do have a system of what I would consider socialized medicine within Medicare, Medicaid, anything that's government funded. And then we also have a privatized system. So we do have a little bit of a hybrid right now. But as I said, I did work in a taxpayer funded system. And even in that system, we did go out and I became an entrepreneur, if you would. I had a group of people that were military people, and I had to go down and compete that group, just like any business would have to save money for the government, in which case that was, who was giving me my money. And I did. And I was told to do it in the middle of the desert where there was one hospital. And believe me, trying to go out and compete or telling people that when there's only one particular provider of each kind, that, hey, I'd like you to pay me less. I'd like to pay you less money. But I did. I was able to get that. I was able to go out there and save a lot of money for the government. So I think the market, again, what happens is with the market forces, they cause a lot of really good things to happen. We need to move in that direction again, but very carefully. And I make a point about this. You cannot just go, overnight. In other words, if I was, if I was making this decision, and I hope that I'll have the opportunity to do that, I would caution people, don't try to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There are some good things that are in play right now. We need to keep those things. But most important, we need to make sure that with our moving forward, we don't hurt anyone. Nobody is left behind without health care. I think that's the most important thing. And when we make decisions for political reasons, or we make decisions too quickly, that's what happens. And I would caution. I like to take things slow. I like to take things incrementally. I like to see what happens if we move this way and it works. Can we move a little bit further? If it works, move a little bit further. And people may say, well, that's too slow. Well, it's too slow for who? It's slow enough to make sure we take care of people, then we'll go slow.
Right. People, depending on who's watching this, between now and November 3rd, some people may be voting early. Some people may be getting mail ballots in, which is an option for many people here and across the Commonwealth and across the 4th District. Do you have any concerns about mail ballots, and how can those concerns be abated, if you will?
Sure. I do. And I've had some personal experiences, and I would, never try to throw anybody under the bus, but I've had some personal experiences where things weren't done what I would consider as accountable as I would like to have seen them go. So I think that the more hands that pass the ballot, it leaves opportunity for even just neglect or straight out corruption. And we've already seen some of these things happen where there have been ballots found in desks and drawers, and how that happens. This is the most, in my mind, again, I'm a military officer. To me, this is the most important thing that right that people have, and it needs to be done just so, we need to make sure it's the purest thing that we can possibly do. And you're supposed to have anonymity. When you go in and you vote early, what they do is they don't count it then. They put it in an envelope with your name on it and the district that you would have voted at. And then the night of the election night, they sit somewhere. I don't know where they sit. Okay, so that's another issue. Where do they put these things while they're waiting for November 3rd to come on? But they have to go back to the district where you would have voted in the first place. And a human being sits there and opens up those envelopes with your name on it, okay? And then takes your ballot and puts it through the machine for you. I have problems. I have problems with that. And I don't think people fully understand what the process is. And you should ask what's going to happen, how is it going to happen exactly. Go to your election people and ask them. And if you still feel comfortable after that, then by all means go do it. I do not feel comfortable with that. I will be voting myself, and I kind of like that too. I like the fact of going into the into the machine, and I feel really good. I feel like my vote's counted, and it's probably as safe as it can possibly be.
Right. What are your thoughts in terms of our immigration policies in the United States? I don't know if I initially brought this up when we
Sure.
spoke in June.
I always was supportive of DACA, and I think the thing is, you have to give people an opportunity to go and get their citizenship. I do believe that people that want to stay in this country should become citizens. That I believe in. I've worked with some of the project citizenship over at the literacy center in my own town, my own city, and I've helped people fill out their application. Number one, we got to make those applications a little bit easier. So to me, I thought this way. I said, if I really feel that I want people to become citizens, then it's my responsibility to do what I can to help make that process easier. I have gone to the graduations where people have bring their whole families in there. And it's such a joyous experience when they get recognized as being new US citizens, maybe the first US citizens in their whole family. And it made me feel good that people value the United States citizenship. It's a wonderful thing. So that I believe that you should have DACA, but I believe that you need to have a cutoff. I know right now, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's 10 years. I think that's too long. I mean, we've extended it. I appreciate that it's being extended again. I think that's the right thing to do. But we've got to say, hey, listen, you got till this period of time to make it happen, make it happen. Now, there's always exceptions to things, and we always need to be flexible to those exceptions and those criteria. But the criteria for exception needs to be very, very clear. Now, when it comes to illegal immigration, and that's where I think is the most difficult in this country that we talk about. If you're, it speaks for itself. You're either here legally or on a visa or on some kind of work permit, or you're not here legally. And if you're here illegally, it's breaking the law. So when people talk about those kinds of, I think it's very, very clear to make the difference between people that are immigrants that are here legally and people that are not here legally. Because when people say, oh, these immigrants, and they kind of group everybody together, that should never be done. There's people here that are, like I said, on student visas. I actually sponsored a young lady from Russia on a student visa. So I know how the process works. She had years and years and years she tried to get into this country. She had to she got married to an American citizen before she could get her citizenship. And, I just thought to myself, wow, the process has got to be reformed. My opinion, we have to reform the immigration process for legal immigrants that are trying to get into this country. Yes, we need to do a better job at that. Again, if you're illegal and you're in this country, it just speaks for itself. It's illegal.
Right. Right. We only get a couple of minutes left. I have a couple of other quick questions to ask you.
Sure.
First of all, and we talked about this back during the summer. The country in Washington, D.C. is extremely polarized. You've got people, either on the left or on the right. Specifically in Washington, that's how they tend to frame issues. Do you feel that most people are generally in the middle? And how can you speak to that group of people?
Sure. I do. I think that people are generally in the middle. I think that they've been polarized and sort of moved to the middle even more now because they've seen the extremes. People have seen the extremes and realized, hey, I don't identify with this group and I don't identify with this group. And they have moved towards the middle. I think there's a huge, if you look at when I go out and campaign, I'll give a perfect example. There's a huge number, 60% or more, that are unenrolled or, they haven't declared. That tells you something, that people want the freedom to choose who they want to, because they want to vote for the right candidate. They want a candidate that they believe is going to do the right thing for them, no matter what party they are in. I've had people talk to me about this before. I had a real, what I would consider very progressive reporter somebody on the cable, and he just was very, very much against, the president and so forth. And, I just kind of was not, I felt it wasn't a good experience. And he was like angry. I kept telling him, it's like, hey, talk to me. Don't talk about that person. And then I understand that after the fact, he made a comment, which really was endearing to me. He said, I've never voted for a Republican in my life, but I would vote for I'd vote for Julie Hall because I know she's an honest person. And I know when it comes to the difficult decisions, she's going to make the right decision. I just thought to myself, wow, if I'm going to get, credential from anybody, that's the person. And I felt very, very good about that. And that is the kind of person that I am.
Yeah. One final question. Have there been any talks for debates between you and Mr. Auchincloss?
Yes, we were approached by a station asking if we would be interested in debating. And I said, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's the best way. I do say, and it's unfortunate because I think when people say debate, they almost look at it as sort of a blood sport of some kind. And it really should not be like that. I think we are very different people. I fall very conservative on a lot of issues. There might be some issues that we agree on, but when it comes to the fundamental things, we are definitely on the other sides. I mean, I am a huge supporter of law and order. I believe that if we don't have law and order, we have chaos. And if we have chaos, we don't have a civilized society. So I definitely support our law enforcement people. He's not as a little bit more on the other side of that. He wants to reallocate dollars. Was very excited about what he saw happening in Minnesota when their city council took away all that money. And now I think the Minnesota City Council is reevaluating that. But again, we're on different sides of things totally. And I think that I would like people to and know that there's a clear decision between my opponent and me. And I think in debate, that's the way they're going to be able to see that, along with these wonderful broadcasts. And I appreciate it.
All right. Well, Julie Hall, the Republican for the Massachusetts 4th Congressional District, I appreciate your time again joining us today. All the best, good luck, and hopefully we'll talk again soon. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. And we appreciate you joining us here today on FRC Media. I'm Keith Tebow. Make sure to vote on November 3rd.